In light of the recent events in Venezuela, you came out against U.S. intervention, a contentious stance as many in Venezuela are currently suffering at the hands of Maduro through starvation and violence, and it is clear that he will not let humanitarian aid in. Under these circumstances and moving forward, do you have a clear position on U.S. intervention overseas, both economically and militarily, for nations that are under the regimes of these oppressive dictators?
Thank you. Good question. There are a lot of awful things happening in the world, and what's going on in Venezuela is terrible. The economy is a disaster. People are living in hunger and in fear. I strongly believe there has to be an international humanitarian effort to improve lives for the people. I think the evidence is pretty clear that the last election in Venezuela was not a free and fair election. And under international supervision, I want to see a free and fair election. But to answer your question, let me say this. I am old enough to remember the war in Vietnam. And I was as active as I could trying to keep the United States from going to war in Iraq. I was in the Congress at that point. And I am very fearful of the United States continuing to do what it has done in the past. As you know, or may know, the United States overthrew a democratically elected government in Chile and in Brazil and in Guatemala and in other countries around the world. So as someone who fervently believes in human rights and democracy, we have got to do everything that we can. But I think sometimes you have unintended consequences when a powerful nation goes in and tells people who their government will be. So my view is that whether it is Saudi Arabia, which is a despotic regime, or whether it is Venezuela, I think we have got to do everything that we can to create a democratic climate. But I do not believe in U.S. military intervention in those countries.
Why have you, Senator, why have you stopped short of calling Maduro of Venezuela a dictator?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the last election was undemocratic, but there are still democratic operations taking place in that country. The point is, what I am calling for right now is internationally supervised free elections. And I do find it interesting that Trump is very concerned about what goes on in Venezuela. But what about the last election that took place in Saudi Arabia? Oh, there wasn't any election in Saudi Arabia. Oh, women are treated as third-class citizens. So I find it interesting that Trump is kind of selective as to where he is concerned about democracy. My record is to be concerned about democracy all over the world. So we've got to do everything we can. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the people of Venezuela who determine the future of their country, not the United States of America.
As you know, President Trump this week is meeting in Hanoi with Kim Jong Un, the leader of North Korea. If you were president, would you meet with Kim Jong Un?
See, now, after all of the nasty things I said about Trump, let me say a good thing here, all right? I think, look, nuclear weapons in the hands of a brutal, irresponsible dictator is a bad idea. And if Trump can succeed, in fact, through face-to-face meetings with Kim Jong Un and rid that country of nuclear weapons, that is a very good thing. So I think that the idea of going and meeting face-to-face with your adversaries is a good idea. I would like the President of the United States to bring Iran and Saudi Arabia together, to bring the Palestinians and the Israelis together. All right? So I wish the President the best of luck. This is a very important issue, and if we can get nuclear weapons out of the hands of Kim Jong Un, that will be a very good thing.
We have a question from Regina Brennan. She's a student at Catholic University. She's from Philadelphia, a supporter of yours. She has a question about the president's border wall with Mexico.
Good evening, Senator. My question for you is, if Donald Trump does get his wall, do you believe that it's worthwhile to adopt a plan onto your platform for deconstruction? Or with so much happening, not in just terms of undocumented migration, but of immigration in general, to adopt such a plan will deflect from more pressing issues?
Yeah. In my political judgment, Donald Trump is not going to get the wall. And I think it really is outrageous. And by the way, there are a number of Republicans who feel the same way, that it really speaks to his authoritarian goals to somehow decide this is a national emergency that he's calling in order to build the wall. All right. The real national emergency that we have is that we do not have comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. The emergency that we have is we have 1.8 million young people who are eligible for the DACA program who are scared to death any day that they could be deported, even though they were spent their whole lives in this country. So the goal with immigration, in my view, is to finally deal with comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship and a humane policy at the border for those who seek asylum. America should not be the country which grabs little children at the border out of the arms of their mothers. That is not what this country is about.